So as just a very brief, I'll let you both introduce yourselves, and you all know District Attorney Blodgett, but I feel, for obvious reasons, very personally committed and excited about any programs that benefit children impacted by parental substance use disorder and children who struggle with adverse childhood events, ACEs. I experienced foster care and homelessness because of my parents' addiction, and I was the recipient of a lot of like hodgepodge services as a child, and I'm grateful to every social worker and psychologist and big sister and community program that I had access to, and not everyone has access to services. I'm really excited that we have a panel today to let DA Blodgett and Lauren Phelps walk you through the All-Stars program and the amazing work that they are doing in Massachusetts to help an often overlooked population, which are kids, and some of the most vulnerable and at-risk kids like me. I might be captain of the fan club of the All-Stars program in both DA Blodgett's and Lauren's. I've had a chance to see the program and visit and meet some of the kids and train some staff and be a fly on the wall. And I think that it really is one of the most innovative and amazing programs that I've ever seen. And next year will be my 30th year in this field. Lauren is also a Pillar of Excellence Award winner, along with DA Blodgett for this work and additional work. So I'm so grateful that you could take time to share with us, Lauren, particularly at the end of the school day out of middle school, and DA Blodgett. I think your vision and leadership in helping to create this program and make sure it happens, and how committed you are to kids who are at most in need, really, in most communities, is so important and critical. So I'll hush up and let you all give an update on the All-Stars program, but I'm so grateful for the work that you do and glad that we can spotlight it again today.
Well, thank you, Jess. And I'll give sort of the history of how this came about, and then turn it over to the real heroine, and Lauren Phelps, because she's just amazing. And if there was anything I wouldn't do for Lauren and for Julie, who's the principal of the Breed, the middle school in Lynn, Massachusetts. So here's how it went. Back in 2000, the summer of either 2015 or 16, the North Shore Chamber of Commerce here in Massachusetts, I'm north of Boston, Essex County, held a forum on the scourge that we were all experiencing all over the country in opioid misuse and substance use addiction. So it was in a local hotel. There were about 400 people there. People who wanted to hear about this, what could be done, what was happening. And the chamber asked me to be the keynote speaker because they're aware that I had started a drug diversion program in 2007. So because I was the keynote speaker, at the end, there was my presentation, there were questions, but I was told that I could pick out two people first who could answer questions or make comments. And I chose the then superintendent of schools in Lynn, Massachusetts, Dr. Catherine Latham. And I chose her because she's a great leader, and I like to tease her. She teased me because she was my 7th grade geometry teacher. And I said, I want to let Dr. Latham ask the first question, because we knew each other when we had brown hair. And that's always my sort of intro. Well, she then proceeded to reveal to this crowd and to me that there were approximately 265 children in the city of Lynn, and I think my memory is correct on that, who came from families where one or both parents suffered substance use disorder. And it kind of like, it took the wind out of me, because we were focusing on people, and admittedly, mostly adults who are suffering from the disease of substance use disorder. But to hear that many children were affected by that really kind of knocked the wind out of my sails. And I asked, how do the number seems astronomical, how is it? And it was a very simple explanation, very, very high truancy rate, kids weren't coming to school. So at the end, I immediately went up to Dr. Latham and said, can we sit down right away? And we did. And it was Dr. Latham, myself, and the then police chief in the city of Lynn, Kevin Coppinger, who's now currently the sheriff of my county in Essex County here in Massachusetts. And we met in the superintendent's office, Dr. Latham's office in Lynn, and I just said how I was so struck by that number, and that we don't talk about kids like that, or at least I never had, and we hadn't talked about what we could do and how they were. And as Jess said later, when Jess got so heavily involved, thankfully, and her life experience, she said, you know, I was one of those kids who was never seen. I was in plain sight, but I wasn't seen, and that just sort of really hit home in terms of these kids. So I felt a real sense of urgency, a real sense of commitment. I wanted to do something. So we sat down in Dr. Latham's office again. We put together a plan. What I could do right away was to find some funding to start a program through seized assets, drug forfeiture money. And we did, when we talked it out, knowing this was the planning stages, and we signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU between the Lynn Public Schools, the Lynn Police Department, and myself as district attorney. And we started at, Dr. Latham had suggested the Breed Middle School. And she said there are two people at this middle school who are the perfect people who would be involved in this. And one, you've already seen, you'll hear from her in a second, Lauren Phelps, and the principal was Julie. And Julie was incredible in terms of offering Lauren's services. We met, we figured out what could we do to first get this going. And this is one of those things that really pulls at your heartstrings, at least for me. The plan to do this was to do it after school, get the kids who had the high truancy rates to come to school. And what was the hook? What was the we could get them to come to school? And it was food, to give these kids something to eat. And that's how we started it. So the kids came, and in the beginning, they came because they were hungry. There wasn't much interaction, and Lauren could fill in the blanks for me ably afterwards, but there wasn't much interaction. We had clinicians there from an organization called Bridgewell and the police. And the understanding was the police would be trained in how to interact with the kids. And the clinicians were there, the counselors, in case the kids wanted to talk. I think it was around 30 days, if my memory is correct. It took about 30 days where the kids then started to sort of open up, interact with the faculty who volunteered, with Lauren, with Julie, and with the clinicians from the organization Bridgewell and the police. And one of the things that struck me when I was checking in with the staff at Breed was that these kids at first didn't make eye contact. They had an unearned, undeserved sense of shame. They felt that they were not worthy. That some of the kids were sort of unkempt, clothes weren't really clean. But after a while, through the good work and the hard work of the staff, started to interact with the staff. And it started to bloom from there, started to blossom. They were more engaged. They were getting help with the homework. Some field trips were set up. And we just sort of marched along in incremental steps to get the kids' trust and to know that they had adults at the school system who cared about them. We had our first graduation that year in April. And my memory is about 68 kids graduated. We had a ceremony put on by the staff. The kids really felt good about themselves. But that year, and it even happened the last time we were able to do it in person, Julie leaned into me, the principal, and said, I think two kids, Lauren, if I'm wrong, correct me, but two kids who graduated lost parents that year to substance use disorder and overdose deaths, but they still came to the ceremony. Over time, things evolved. The last 3 years, there's been a holiday party in the holiday season in which the kids have brought their parents with them, which is so uplifting. But little progressions happened that just have made me more determined than ever. One of the things that hit me, again, where it just tugs at your heartstrings, it did for me at least, was Lauren said to me at the holiday party, do you want to see what your money went to this year? And I said, okay. And she brought me into the home rec room. Jess has been there, and she pointed to a washer dryer. A washer dryer. And she told me that the kids were told that if they bring their clothes in to do the laundry, they would get scholarship points. Because a great component of this program was we wanted to make sure the kids could keep their dignity. We didn't want the kids feeling singled out, that they would have their dignity. So the kids were bringing their clothes in to wash. And then, of course, they were bringing in clothes from the entire family. The support they were getting from the school is incredible. And I say this in the humblest way I can. This wasn't some great invention on my part. This isn't me. This was something that I think anybody who cares about kids and knows that kids who have high ACEs scores will more than likely end up in the criminal justice system. Judge Rancourt's dealt with this. If there was some way we could help these kids and we keep them out of the criminal justice system, but more importantly, give them the dignity that they deserve, was an incredibly important endeavor. We've had, I think, 6 graduations now. In the spring, last year, one of the kids who was in the initial program was going to Bentley College here in Massachusetts. The kids who graduated from the All-Star program go back to help and talk to the kids and mentor the kids who are currently in there now. And this is, I'm sorry, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. We told the kids that they were asked to be in the All-Star program because we know and could tell they're future leaders in their city. And it's really come together quite well. Last year, I was able to buy a comfort dog for the kids. I mentioned it to Lauren, and she like jumped up and down and told me that was the best thing that could have happened. So they've had the dog for 2 years. And then this year at our holiday party, just seeing how happy the kids were, I said, I'm going to buy another comfort dog for the kids. And we're in the process now. We've done that, and the dog is being trained. So we kind of, as we're going along now, and this is year 7, we're just thinking of other things we can do to make the kids feel that they deserve the attention and they deserve not empathy, but the love that they're getting from the school. I couldn't be prouder of the people at Bree Junior High, and it's so easy for me to want to do anything I can to possibly help them, because this is probably the best thing I've done.
So thank you so much for that plug, DA Blodgett. I just wanted to start off by saying, you know, here comes another announcement, end of the day. I knew kids. I knew nothing about drugs other than, you know, I'm a school counselor. I know a little bit. I didn't know too much about ACEs. I think I knew kind of subconsciously that, you know, kids from homes that, you know, there's past traumas, those are the kids I need to work with more often than not. But, you know, through working with the DA and working with Jess, it really was truly eye-opening for me. I think the first time I met Jess, she came in with the DA. I had no idea who she was. And I was like, yep, come on in, you know, see the show. And then the next day I went and saw her speak, and I was like, oh my goodness, we need to partner with you as well. You know, you are one of those kids, and you are a success story. So you are the goal, really, for our program. The first conversation I think I had with Jess, we were talking about how, you know, she'd be at lunch at school and kids would have sandwiches with the crust cut off, and Jess would be lucky if she, you know, had anything to eat. And that image just stays with me, you know, as a parent of my own kids, and then like what we can provide here for our students at this middle school. So I am eternally grateful for both of you, and our kids are as well. So if we want, we can get started to just kind of give an overview about our program here, and then I'm happy to give my contact information if anyone would like to reach out following this presentation, you know, to talk details. This is going to be more of a brief overview, but hopefully we can answer some questions along the way. DA Blodgett, are you ready?
Sure.
All right. So Jess, I think we can skip to the 4th slide, because I think the DA pretty much covered our background. We are an ACEs intervention program. We really celebrate the value of joy. We have values within our school building, but the value of joy is our key component to our program. This graphic just shows the opioid use in our city. So we're a very large urban city in Greater Boston. And you can see that we're averaging about 39 incidents of overdoses or deaths attributed to opioids just this year. You could see the major spike that happened locally between 2012 and 2017. And that's really when the program started. 2016, 2017, we really got started with this. And we are seeing a downward trend. Unfortunately, it's more of a flat line, I think, since the COVID pandemic. So we're just aiming to continue the prevention. We are having some successes with the kids, which you'll see later. But obviously, there's still a major concern with their parents and families. So that's why our prevention program is so important in our city. So one thing we always say is don't let anyone steal your joy. So our goals, we do have curriculum goals. It's called the All-Stars curriculum. You can find it online. That's what we based our program off of. The first day I was asked to do this program, I got that book on my desk and was like, here, Lauren, can you run a program for at-risk kids? Here's the book. So we've really expanded from that original book, but we do keep these goals. Substance use prevention, future opioid use prevention, reducing violence and bullying, delaying sexual activity, and then really building character to ensure bright futures. So our curriculum, we know it succeeds when students kind of change their beliefs. So it's also actions, but their belief system. So they really truly have to believe that risky behaviors don't fit in the lifestyle that they choose for their future. We really do spin it as a leadership program. We like run around the school being like, congratulations, you were selected. Here's an envelope with your acceptance letter. And they get so excited. We have a wait list of about 200 kids that do not need this program at all, but there's just all this hype around it. So the kids really feel special that are selected. We're never like, oh, we choose you because your parents are addicted to heroin. It doesn't really come up that way. But we weave in the substance use prevention and the science behind it from the resources from Addiction Policy Forum. So the kids are really starting to choose their future goals and try to figure out the pathways to get there. So this is just a graphic that shows the ACEs scores in our kids. So we're at about, as of last spring, we're at about an average of 4.4 out of the 10 ACEs. So as you can see, it's significantly higher than most of the adult American population. And it's higher than anyone who's considered clinically significant. We've had kids with 10 out of 10 ACEs. This is an annual thing. So most of our kids have 2 to 4, but we do have many who have been through a lot of trauma. So our major goal, this is more of a shift in the past couple of years after working with Addiction Policy Forum, is really beefing up the protective factors after understanding the risk factors and having the kids understand the risk factors. It's not something taught in a day. If you've looked at the ACEs work, sorry, the ACEs work, you have to teach the risk factors kind of incrementally. You can't be like, okay, here's all the things. If you have any of these things, you're at risk for these other things. So we do this slowly throughout the year, but really having the kids understand the science behind it and having the adults who work the program understand the protective factors. So even on the kids' worst day, they're not going to get yelled at. They're not going to get kicked out of the program. We're going to handle that situation on that day and make sure that the next day is a fresh start and it's positive for the kids. So we really have shifted to that ACEs intervention rather than a program for at-risk kids. So just as far as scheduling, we're lucky, thank you, DA Blodgett, we're lucky to have kind of 2 sessions of our program. There's a school year in-person program, which we have more students become a part of. It's about 60 to 75 students during the school year. Like I said, we have a giant waiting list, but we really can't connect if we have a giant population of students in the program. So we meet from November to June, twice a week. The school department does pay for a custodian, cafeteria worker. There's hot lunch for them made every day. There's a snack for them provided every day. Then additionally, we do use our cooking classroom where our laundry is as well, and the kids are able to cook, and we do nutrition class. But a lot of what it is having leftovers for them to bring home. So that's what we utilize that for. In the summer, we do a 6-week smaller intensive program. So it's a longer day. The kids come 8:30 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon. We do take them on field trips. A lot of the kids would never go to any of these public places if we don't take them. But that's really to build our leaders and see who stands out to be our student leaders for the school year program. So as far as demographics, we take a look at all kinds of things. We get a lot of referrals from community agencies or support staff within the school. We do look at kids who are having increased attachments or detachments from school staff or peers. So kids who are overly attached to teachers without like knowing too much about their family history, or kids who are really withdrawn without knowing too much of their family history. Usually we don't know which ACE is evident at that time, but typically something will pop up the more we, investigate and build that rapport with the kids. Our kids do have one or more known ACE most of the time, or we expect one or more ACE. We have about 20 siblings of students this year. So like we have a bunch of 6th graders, which we normally don't have, but they've been waiting for this. They've been coming to our Christmas celebrations for the past 5 years. We have some big families with a lot of trauma history. So the kids are really excited. Those kids, the siblings are already invested. And it's kind of a cool thing that's really coming about more recently. And the big thing about these kids is we really make them believe they're leaders on the first day of the program. Is what we try to do, and really build upon that and set higher expectations than they normally have in the school building. For our graduates, we were doing monthly Zoom check-ins with them, which made things kind of nice. I had a girl who was in Africa. It was like 4 a.m. She didn't want to miss it. She was out. It was about 110 degrees out. She said there's mosquitoes all over her. She's on Zoom. So we want to provide that platform. That's one good thing that's come out of COVID, is that we are able to check in with more kids more frequently. We invite the kids to all of our major events. And like the DA said, we really started that mentorship where they're coming back to sessions, to give mentorship to the kids, to give some positive peer role models for them, because they've been in these kids' shoes. So for staffing, again, the DA touched upon this, but we have classroom teachers. We hand select them. If I put this out for the union, God knows who we would get. No offense to all the teachers here. But we select the teachers who really can connect with the kids and maintain, that appropriate level where you're going to hear some really crazy things and want to take the kids home and, adopt them all. But we have to maintain that boundary. So our teachers are awesome, at maintaining that boundary while providing the support, which is ongoing. We do have some float staff. So I have like a carpentry teacher come in, an art teacher come in, a music teacher come in, kind of part-time, to partner with our teachers that are already on staff. We have a parent liaison who's bilingual in Spanish and English, because we have a large Hispanic population here in our city. So she is amazing. And communication has really increased with the families by getting her on board. Our school resource officer has partnered with us. School counselors we've had, and in addition, the outside clinician from Bridgewell's Project Cope, and she specializes in drug and alcohol counseling. So a lot of times we're able to get the families hooked up with her following the students' graduation from our program. All right, and those are some of the things that the kids call us. We're the lawyer most of the time, as I like to say. That's my main role at school, is being their lawyer. But this is our favorite staff member. This is Stella. I was a little out of breath getting here because they made an announcement that it was school picture day and it was the last call for school pictures. And I realized, oh man, I didn't get Stella's picture taken. And the kids would be so mad at me. So had to fly there before we got started. So she is in training for the Good Citizen exam through the AKC. She's able to go into a classroom and have a scent for a kid who's really experiencing some anxiety or distress. So the kids love her. She's been a great addition. I can't thank the DA enough for her. She lives with me. She works with me. I spend more time with her than my family, I think, at this point. But the kids really, she's another token for them at the program, a reason for them to come, a reason for them to come to school. And we're going to be getting one of her sisters from another litter this spring. So I can't wait for that to happen as well. Like the DA said, we have special events, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Family Day, graduation. It's really nice to have the families come in, even, if it's not their best day, they'll still come in to support the kids at a lot of these events, because many of our students haven't gotten, they haven't been on the honor roll. They haven't been getting the recognitions. They weren't the kid that got the trophy. They don't participate in sports because their parents won't sign them up or can't sign them up. So it's nice to have the families involved and to celebrate and see them be proud of their kids. And it's good for the kids to see that, reciprocally. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about a daily schedule. So you can actually, this is the kids playing golf. I got golf clubs donated. The kids have never played before. So we had a little clinic. They loved that. I think you can switch the slide. Just there we go. So this is just a typical day for us. So at 2:15, the kids meet after school. We do some academic check-ins, but it's not solely homework time. Some of the kids just need a break and need to talk and need to check in. So that's a great time to do that. We also make announcements if we're doing surveys or, creating service projects as a group, making resumes, any sort of life skill we like to do at that time. We follow up by having snack time. That's one of the 2 times during the day they can use their phones. Some of them would be on their phones all day if we let them at this age, but right now they've been great about just using during that time allotted. The kids do their laundry at that time, and we do assign the group's laundry time. So if you're in group 1 on Monday, you're doing laundry. You have to bring it in, or it's a point against you if you don't. So it's kind of building up a point system for them, and they all bring it, even if it's 1 shirt or 1 hoodie. We have kids who wear just their All-Stars sweatshirt every single day. So it gives them a chance to take it off, throw it in the wash, and it'll be done by the end of the day. We have small group meetings. That's where we do our curriculum work. The kids are with the same teacher every session. And then we have a couple of different rec activities built in, along with dinner and kind of wrapping up the laundry as well. For our recreational activities, we vary. We have cooking, art, woodwork, cosmetology, athletics, board game. We play bingo. We have water safety and swimming lessons in the summer. We try to vary our activities constantly because most of these things our students haven't been exposed to. So a lot of them are cooking at home, but don't have any sort of training in that. They're cooking for younger siblings, so we try to cook with them, send some things home with them, send some dry supplies, some pasta or whatever they can make at home once they know how to safely. But we try to vary the activities just to kind of broaden their horizons as far as what they could do in the future. So we've had kids who really have loved the woodworking and have gone on to the technical high school, and now are going to become carpenters. So we're trying to pave the way by giving them all kinds of opportunities that they wouldn't normally have. So for our groups, the staff actually drafts. It's like an NFL draft. This is the staff's one of their favorite days of the year. They get to choose the students in their groups. Each group has a team captain. I create the curriculum based on the All-Stars curriculum, and I pull from APF. I pull from all different strings for that, and the teachers just facilitate the lessons during their group time each week at each session. So field trips, I have these on here. These are just some examples of places we've gone to. We really try to do a lot with taking healthy risks, kind of a behavior modification experiences. You know, kids who have never been to a restaurant don't know how to act in a restaurant, whether they're 6 or whether we have them at 15, it's the same idea. So what is the etiquette in different places? And I'm just giving the real world experiences. We see growth from from November to June. It's crazy drastic every year. But it's getting the kids out into the community, seeing what's out there, seeing what they can do in the future. And again, taking the healthy risks to kind of boost their serotonin that way, has been awesome for all of them. So our budget consists of asset forfeiture funds from the DA's office and school department funds. That pays for, the school department pays for the staff salaries. But what do we spend money on? People ask me this a lot because people see the pictures of the field trip. So it looks like everything goes to field trips, but there's supplies for rec activities. There's the curriculum pieces we need. The clothing items, like those sweatshirts we buy them are like the greatest things. They are better than a trophy. They're better than an award. They're better than money. They wear those things with pride every single day to school. Training for staff we've done. I've taken a couple courses and kind of like a train the trainer in trauma and yoga and mindfulness. I know APF is taking up a lot of mindfulness. We did that last year here at the program. So we like to make sure that our staff is trained in a variety of things to help the kids. Laundry obviously is a huge thing for us, and then hygiene products, because the kids aren't, they're hardly getting deodorant at home, or they're sharing with 4 people. So we're making sure that the kids are able to come to school, again, kind of uphold that dignity, and feel comfortable enough to learn during the day and have fun with us in the afternoon. So sharing some resources that we use. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail. Jess, I think you can go to the next slide on this one. This is the curriculum that we use. This is the book that was thrown on my desk, pretty much. But this is all about building the rapport with the kids, and then going into the substance use prevention and the education behind it. Owning Up is another curriculum piece that I've used. Project Here is a project in Massachusetts that has the kids can play like individual games online. So when they're home, they were all given a school computer from our district last year because of COVID. But this is something that they can make future goal plans on, and play little games and do questionnaires that do talk about substance use. So we like to kind of correlate what we're doing and assign those activities unofficially. And then obviously Addiction Policy Forum, my favorite. We use these all the time with staff, with the students, and the science, teaching the kids the science, they actually get it. Like, this is what happens. It's pretty black and white. And for them, they understand the science piece, even, in 6th and 7th grade, more than you would think, because they're saying, okay, I can check off these boxes, but now I know if I do this, this, and this, I'm going to be okay. So once they can understand that, which it takes a while, it is not an overnight lesson, they're in really good shape for the future. And then Nadine Burke-Harris, I've been following her for a while now. This book I recommend to anyone who's working in a field where there's ACEs involved. The fight or flight response, it's cyclical. It's here, we see it every day. I try to explain it to our teachers. It's not just the kids in our program, but when you're seeing these behaviors, it's a result of that fight or flight response because of trauma. So this book talks a lot about it. There's a great podcast on that I included here that I also share with my staff. So I would highly recommend all these sites as well. And here's just a little bit of data. This was taken from last summer. So what's interesting about this was usually during our summer program, it's the data we collect is usually a lowered estimate of the truth because we're with them, a lot of them for the first time. We did have some returning students, but for most of the students, it was the first time they were with us in the program or the first time they were in person with us. So it was kind of an interesting year where we take the data and say, okay, this is probably a lowered estimate because the kids don't have that major trust with us yet to give us the full details of their own background and their own families and their own friends. But you could see when we look at the data that it's going to be a little bit concerning still. So here's some good data that 95% of our graduates have completed high school in 4 years. So that's a big celebration for us. And then as of last fall, this time last fall, none of our students had records with the Juvenile Justice Department. So that in itself, we were like, all right, we're getting somewhere. So hopefully that trend continues. And again, keeping the graduates in tune with what we're doing, inviting them back, staying in touch, is I think a really important part of that because they always say, oh, we know you're watching us and, from afar we are. So this is a reflection of that. For risk factors, and this is, again, I would say a lowered estimate of what is true of our kids. So I'm interested to see how these numbers shift when we meet with the kids again this school year. But 36% in an intimate relationship. So these kids are 12, 13, 14 years old. 35% have had a physical altercation. 42% have no washer dryer. 50% have trouble trusting adults. 54% have been bullied. 27% report a history of physical abuse toward them in their home, and 46% mental abuse toward them in their home. So 1 in 4 kids is telling us, yep, there's physical abuse in my home, or there has been. Almost, half of them are saying, yep, I've been mentally abused in my own home. So that it's really hard where you're looking and you're saying, okay, 50% have trouble trusting adults, but 50% are also telling us that they've been mentally abused in the home. It's really, bothersome, but it shows we have a lot of work to do. So for survey data, as far as alcohol use, 20% in July said they've had alcohol before. And then in August, nobody reported using alcohol within the last 30 days. So during the program time. So 21% say, yep, their friends drink alcohol currently. And 41% reported their family members abuse alcohol. For marijuana and nicotine use, 10% report ever smoking marijuana. And again, we had that 0% of students used alcohol, used marijuana in the past 30 days, which it's pretty great that we went down to 0% on alcohol and marijuana. We didn't go down to 0% on the vaping devices. We are seeing less kids reporting the use of vaping, but we still had 3% say, yep, I used one in the past 30 days. I think it's still, way too available for them at such a young age. And that's something we're still tackling, although it's, like I said, hasn't been as frequent, or it hasn't been as much as an issue in our school or our program. And then, 36% of their friends smoke marijuana, and almost half of them say their family members use drugs. Some more positive data. In July, 74% of students said they were leaders. In August, and we only had them 6 weeks. So 6 weeks later, 96% said they were leaders. So building that rapport and really honing in on the leadership skills seemed to boost their self-esteem and get them ready for the school year. And 88% of them said they have made many new friends at the summer program. And then just lastly, I did a screenshot actually from one of the Addiction Policy Forum videos. This is our goal. So, we know those risk factors, and the kids are really teetering between the risk and protective factors at this age. So we're trying to increase the prevention, increase those protective factors, get the community involved, social engagement within the school, outside of the school, and really involve the parents, even if the parents have, addiction, in their past, in their genetics, wherever it falls for the families. We want to make sure that they're welcome here, that their kids need the support, and really keep that tie between the parent and child, as an incentive for the parent, to stay in recovery, or to start the recovery process while keeping the kids in good shape for a successful future. And this was when our kids, we had them line up and make the word joy. And this is something we started doing every year. So we print this out. We tell the kids to stick it in their locker or stick it in their mirror at their house, and look at it every day, and know that there's going to be positivity at school, no matter what's happening at home.
Can I jump in, Jess?
Sure thing.
So what Lauren didn't tell you was that last year during the height of COVID, she assembled gifts for all the kids who couldn't come to school. And I saw a picture of it. And she went out with Stella and delivered gift baskets to all the kids for them and their families during the holiday season. You won't hear about that. She was too humble to say it, but it just shows the kind of commitment and the dedication and the innate goodness that I'm so lucky to have with Lauren Phelps and Julie Loof, the principal. And the last thing I'll say before any questions and answers, I can never recall feeling any better than I did the last two holiday parties when I go in and the kids are there and they come up to you and they shake your hand, they look you in the eye, they wish you a happy holiday, Merry Christmas season. And then I watch them together, and like Lauren said, a lot of them now they bring their parents to the holiday celebration, which is great. And I say to myself, these kids have had it so hard, and even though there are great things happening in this program, at the end of the day, they still go back to a tough situation in their homes. And I see them, they bond together. These kids know why we're doing this. We don't have to say it. We don't want them to not have their dignity. But I remember talking to them, and they stick up for each other. They bonded. I mean, I came in last year, and there was a young man of color, 6'2", like 13, and his buddy is an Asian girl, like same age, like 4'8", and they'd go to combat together. If they were in a foxhole, they would defend each other to the death. And it's just so it's so tremendous to see that thing. Because again, as I said in the beginning, this wasn't rocket science on my part. This wasn't anything it was just, what can we do? What small part can we play to help kids with high ACEs scores who deserve a break? So, and it's all because of Lauren and Julie, all because of them.
Well, I think we have time for a little bit of Q&A. Lauren, thank you so much. DA Blodgett, thank you so much for the overview of the program. It's just so exciting to see the data and to share all that you've accomplished and built with our whole network. So it's really exciting. We have one question that's come in from, and if you have questions, please don't be shy and put them into our Q&A piece at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Michelle asks, I love that you are using protective factors as a means to assist kids, but also to help them learn to build resilience. Have you noticed what specific protective factors seem to be most important in the success of young people in your program?
Yeah, I think honestly that the number one thing is the training of the staff who work the program, and having them be able to create that positive rapport quickly with the students. I think that in itself, gets kids to school every day. It makes them feel like they have trusted adults when, the data shows that it's really hard for them to trust adults. A lot of the kids come to school and, their immediate thing is, I hate my teachers. I hate the vice principal. It's a lot of negativity. or my friends are annoying or whatever. And this, the staffing and having the staff trained and knowing like, okay, this kid's going to have a bad day, but how can we handle it? And the kid saying, okay, I had a bad day, but these people aren't mad at me. I'm not really in trouble, and coming back the next day and being positive. I think that's huge. And I think, like the DA touched upon is the bonds between the kids. I think that protective factor, that social element where we kind of facilitate it the first couple months of the program. We teach kids how to be appropriate friends. It's not explicit, but that's another thing we kind of weave in. And I think just those social bonds keep kids involved. And that's what we've heard from the high school kids, like, oh, so-and-so is playing football, so I decided to play. So it's rallying the troops a little bit. And I think it's that peer leadership amongst one another that will help them, gravitate to making those right choices as they get older, especially when they leave middle school.
Yeah, I love that. And I love those positive relationships, that it's not just having one caring adult. You have so many staff and mental health professionals that you've brought in, that you end up having sort of your own arsenal of caring adults. And it really sort of changes the equation for the kids that you serve.
Yeah. And I think that connection with the DA's office and with the police department, where, the families have a really, poor perception on them most of the time. The kids change that for the families. That we have a new chief of police who's texted me a bunch of times saying, Lauren, when can I come down there? What can I do? So it's creating that rapport with the kids. And a lot of it is getting that support for their families. They know they have other people to ask if it's not school staff. They have other members of the community. There's not many kids at Breed that could say, hey, I know the DA. But our kids are like, oh yeah, I know him. Like he's like the president, so they feel important that, they know people, they have support systems in the community. And, they're very lucky in that regard. It's just making sure that we monitor as they get older to just keep making those right decisions. And a lot of times they do it within their peer group.
That's awesome, Lauren. I have one other just comment on something else that I love about what you all have done. And then we have two questions in the Q&A I want to get to. I love that this is a leadership program, and that, when you're a kid with addiction at home, or a kid with, sort of difficulties, ACEs scores that you're struggling with, regardless of the sort of the underlying cause of that in your own household, you can feel marked already, right? You feel different or other, or that you have very different circumstances than a lot of your peers. And so your program allowing kids to keep their dignity, and this not being, this is something that's sort of sought after and you're excited about, and you get, sort of tapped as a leader, and it's a leadership program. I love how you've built it that way. It is, everyone might wink, wink, and they know, but it's enough to allow, it's sort of stealthy enough to allow that dignity piece. And I think that's a huge part of seeing their attachment to the program, how excited they are, how much they stay with it even after they've graduated. So I just wanted to acknowledge and thank you for building that part into your program, because it's really important. So Fatima has a question about your survey and your data. How do you sort of collect that data? How often? Tell us a little bit about how you do this.
Sure. So a lot of the questions actually come from the All-Stars curriculum itself. We've tweaked it a bit as, the program has grown. So we do a Google form. So the kids know it's anonymous, which is a nice part about it. That's for most of the questions. When we do ACEs scores, I actually sit with the kids and ask them those questions. I don't have any of my teachers do that. It's very, very personal. I typically have a really good, really trusting relationship with all the kids because I'm seeing them. My job allows me to see them during the school day as well, being a school counselor here. But I do those questions verbally. We prepared the kids over a couple weeks before we even do the questionnaire. It's not like, hey, today we're going to ask you ACEs questions. What we do is we teach them about ACEs actually for about 2 weeks. We built that into our curriculum, and then they know it's coming. And then we usually get a pretty good truth telling from them when we ask. It's things that people have never asked them explicitly. And they do like knowing. One thing that I preface it with when we do ACEs is, anything you tell me, I'm not going to ask any follow-up questions. If you want to talk about this, you can talk to me, or I can refer you to our clinician, or any of the teachers. But it's very important that you're going to answer yes or no, and I'm not going to make any judgment, and I'm not going to ask you follow-ups. And I think them being able to say, yes, yes, I've been abused, or yes, my dad's been in jail, or whatever, without going into detail, it's easier for them to just like spit it out, feel relieved, spit it out, feel relieved. And, the kids, we haven't had any negative experiences with it. The kids usually are, say thank you when we're done. So, we do the surveys a couple times a year to see growth during the school year. Usually the curriculum ones we do, and the demographic ones, November. We usually like to do them about February, and then again at the end of the school year to just kind of gauge, the 30-month cycles of substance use within their peer groups and their homes. And then over the summer, we do pre and post. It's a little bit shortened in the beginning of July, and then the last day of the program usually.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Lauren, for going over that. I love how you sort of keep them protected during that ACEs part, but also teach them what this is beforehand. You really are arming them with a lot of information, a lot of science. Gary has a question, or a comment and a question. I love that you train the staff, because that is so important to win over the trust of these unique children. Is your staff training universal for all faculty, staff, and or volunteers?
So our training is specific to our program. We do some universal training around ACEs. We've done that the past couple of years for our entire building at PD Days. It's not as specific because a lot of our teachers can't be trained to handle kind of the aftermath of, okay, I know that this kid has been through these traumas. Now what happens? They're not clinicians, and we wouldn't want to put the teachers in a position where they feel the need to have those conversations without having the training. So as far as the training for our program staff, I put that together every year. I pull from every direction. Jess just sent me some new videos this week, and those are in there for our staff. They went over those last night, actually. We do the addiction training. We have podcasts from Nadine Burke-Harris. We have articles that we read, and then we just do, there's an older addiction policy forum slide deck about understanding addiction, and that's the science piece. So we pull from that as well. We pull from everywhere, and it's really a lot of information. And then we also do training on like team building, and what are some quick ways to deal with a student whose behavior is escalating or whatever in the class. So it's pretty intense. There's a lot that we do. We don't do it all in a day, but it seems to be working, so we'll keep that up. And I'm happy to share the resources we use as well.
Your staff they know their stuff. They are really impressive, and every time I've gotten to have a session with them, it's always really amazing. We're at APF, we will continue to build you whatever is helpful to you. Those 3 new videos were just for you and your students. We'll release them to everyone else. We're putting a campaign and a translation series together. Thank you, NIDA, for all your research, and we're making it appropriate for middle school students and all-star students. So we're really excited about that. And when you need something else, you just let us know, because we are on your team to be a support whenever we can.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
DA Blodgett, any wrap-up comments before we shift to our next thing? I just wanted to thank both of you for taking the time to go over your program and the results. One little comment is, as someone with a high ACEs score, it is sometimes very annoying when you are in more of the sort of mental health or social work or researcher settings, and you hear about all the awful outcomes that you are likely to have. It can feel a little hopeless and discouraging, and it's hard. And so what I love is that you've done something about it. You have a program that has 95% graduation rate with 0 JJ involvement. The kids are going to college, right? Like first generation college admission. It's so much to be celebrated. And when you focus, and just because it's hard or the issue seems daunting, when you do the right thing and figure out a solution regardless, that is amazing. And we're so grateful to you all for what you've built here, taking the difficulty things and not just talking about it. And, you know, we have a tendency to like to elevate an issue, but you found a solution, and the solution has been implemented now for years with showing positive results. So it just deserves a lot of attention and accolades, and thanks to you both for your leadership.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I would have to say too to you before, and I'll be brief, Jess, but I think another humble individual, of course, is D.A. Blodgett. I've known him a while, and I consider him the gold standard for prosecutors coming out of the judicial branch. He's tough when he has to be to protect his citizens, if you will, from a public safety standpoint, but he's compassionate when he needs to be. And compassion doesn't mean soft on crime. Compassion means smart on crime. And that's exactly what he does. And I can't commend you enough, Jonathan, for what you've done. And turning to you, Ms. Phelps, I have a sister also in counseling, and the struggles that you have every day with students coming before you are not like the struggles we had back in the late 60s as far as counselors. We've got social media, we've got bullying, we've got just a myriad of issues. And I'm just going to share one quick story because I think it addresses what you do, Ms. Phelps. I had a juvenile drug treatment court one time, and I remember a young man came before me, and I asked him if he had anything to say. And he said, "Judge, it doesn't matter what I have to say." And I said, "Well, yes, it does." And it seems like your program is answering those students. Yes, it does matter what you have to say to us. And we can address that long term, and we can give you the self-esteem that you may not have because you can't buy the sneakers or dress up like other students or whatever they do. And so, Ms. Phelps, again, thank you so much. I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you, Jeff.
so
That's
much.
very nice to say that. The kids love Lauren, by the way, and love Julie. They love Lauren because they know that she generally cares for them. But I've also seen her crack the whip. She doesn't put up with any nonsense. So she's got the perfect balance of what has to happen. So, you know, and we do have about 68 kids a year, the same amount of kids, or that number, who graduate. So we're really happy with that.
It's amazing work, an amazing program. And I think it can actually shed light on how most communities should be addressing the most vulnerable kids, to be honest. It's something that should be replicated everywhere.